Hey, welcome to Building a Champions Playground. I'm glad to be back here, and today is a very, very special day for me. I have another great guest who I'm looking forward to speaking with and sharing some great insights with everybody who's going to get the opportunity to watch this. So today with me, I have a very special friend, mentor, advisor, you name it. I think you've been everything to me over the last 10 years since we've met, my friend. So thank you for joining us. John Williams from I guess Elevate with John, Coach Sean, is joining me today. And he's also a certified WTA coach working with Miss Taylor Townsend. I think you're down in Dubai today. Is that correct?
I am in Dubai.
Nice, nice. Doubles coming up tomorrow, I'm assuming.
Yes, that's what we hear.
Yeah, and wonderful. And I also like to take the opportunity to congratulate you on your success, not throughout your whole career, but just recently winning the Australian Open doubles. And I see the AO stuff in behind you there. So congratulations, my friend. It's wonderful to see success that you've been having on stage. I follow as much as I can from overseas here because you're not too often up in the Canada area, maybe once a year. But I try and track as much as possible. And it's been exciting to watch the journey that the two of you have had. And it's been exciting for me to watch her speak on court after she wins quite often when we get the opportunity to see her speak and what she says and how she says it for the most part. I see your influence in what you're doing with her. At least I think I see your influence in what you're doing with her, of course. So it's been wonderful for me to watch this growth of the young lady and to see your career on the tennis side. So let me ask you a quick question before we dive into maybe everything. Why tennis, my friend? It's not your background, or maybe start with your background and then give the kind of open up the door as to why move into tennis.
Sure. So no, it's not where I began. But I've been saying to people that have asked me that question more recently, obviously with the opportunities that I've had to do more public speaking and be more front facing in this space. Most coaches come into tennis through the front door. They kind of start at the sidewalk. They start as a player, then they walk up the entranceway toward the front door and steps. Maybe they advance, in their playing career. They get to the front door and that begins their coaching career, their pedagogy and formal education and so on and so forth. And I've never been the traditional path taker. And when you start talking about some of the other things that I've done, you'll realize that lines up quite well. But so I came in through the side window.
Okay. Yeah. I love it.
And we end up in the living room just all the same. The difference is the perspective that I had. I've been around the house a couple of times. I've seen, the roof. I know what the basement looks like. So for me, it was the only way that I could imagine I would ever get into the sport the way that I have. And I love that because it provides me with, unique vantage points and viewpoints that if I had been indoctrinated, and I don't use that term with a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But if I had been indoctrinated as a tennis player, then I would come in with my own laundry list of personal biases and understandings.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe some blinders.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And to that point, there were things that I would be innately much better at if I had come in that way.
Yeah.
But also, as the scale indicates, you can't be heavy on one side and heavy on the other side at the same time. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And so you talked about, the potential shortcomings, not innately having the tennis side, for lack of a better term. I think I know your skill set, but I'd love to hear it from you as to what have you done to kind of fill in the gaps?
Yeah. So first and foremost, study my butt off.
I love it. Yes.
Educate myself and skill up in every area that I identified as being critical to the success of the player or growth and development of the player. I see the two as synonymous.
Yes.
Right? If you're not growing and developing, then you're not successful. It doesn't matter what the results are, because eventually you will hit a pothole that
And
flattens
you're
your tire and
Yeah.
you're done, right? So anything that would hinder the forward movement and growth and development of the player that I'm working with, I try to minimize that effect. And anything that promotes that, I try to maximize that effect. So in terms of skill identification and requirements, boom, there you go. Some things were more innate to me than others, like the tactical side of the game
Yeah.
came innately to me because I have a tactical mind to begin with. So it was very easy to understand, okay, once I approach it this way, once I identify that, I just need to, then it becomes a vocabulary thing, speaking the same language, and which makes it just quicker and easier to understand. But for an example, one area that I did not think was imperative that I skilled up in was my ability to hit. I don't have to hit tennis balls
Yeah.
in order to coach successfully at the pro level.
Yeah.
Because unless unless my level is such that I can push my player and press my player,
Yeah.
then anything that I do is going to be subpar in that regard, because there are people around that can do that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The second thing is, if I'm hitting, can I do that from the same side of the net?
You cannot.
I cannot. I have to do it from the other side of the net, which means that the feedback loop is automatically interrupted, or it turns into a screaming session in between
Each ball.
shots.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
physically have to speak loud enough for them to hear me.
Yeah.
And that means that now they're concentrating and the attention is divided, and it doesn't make for a really effective and or conducive learning environment. Because one of my other premises is minimum effective dose. How much can I accomplish with the least amount of effort and time?
Yeah. Love it. Love
So.
it. Can you? I'd love to hear about your thoughts, because you know that I'm like you. I mean, I've skilled up in my hitting as well. But yeah, I do.
Probably more so than me.
Maybe. But I don't hit the juniors. I use machines. I use hitting partners. I want to be on the same side, and it's not like I try not to overcoach. It's, snippets here and there. Look for solutions. Can you tell me this, do you think that's, I don't want to say a better way, but, well, let's say it for now and let's see where the conversation goes. But do you think it's a better way to be on the
Okay.
same? Yeah.
So here's an interesting perspective. What I think doesn't matter.
True. What happens?
Right?
Yeah.
Because if we're in this situation and we're looking for maximum positive effect, then we have to look at the effects. If we're getting the outcomes that we desire, then what we're doing is effective.
Yeah.
Either directly or indirectly. We can dig down into that later, right?
Yeah.
But if we're getting the outcomes we desire, then what we're doing is effective.
Yes.
The stimulus is appropriate for the response that we want.
Exactly. Okay.
So I look at how my player is responding when I talk more, when I talk less, when I give bullet points of information versus short sentences, when I just use cues or when I use short sentences or bullet points.
Okay.
What does she respond most favorably to? How can I get the most favorable response with the least amount of information? What category does my information delivery need to fit in? Once I understand that, then the game is different. Because now I'm giving her the food that she wants, the way that she wants to eat it every single time.
When she wants to eat it, yeah.
When she wants to eat it, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm doing that and I'm getting the outcomes that I desire, then if it's not broke, don't fix it.
I love it. I love it. It's always been it's a puzzle.
Yes. Whenever you're dealing with humans,
As opposed to,
it's a puzzle. As opposed to canines.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And a lot of my methodology stems from the understanding of how to train animals.
Wonderful.
Yeah. With an understanding. So the principles, the mechanisms are very, very similar, if not identical for the most part. The approach and the understanding is different.
I love it. I love it. Let's dig into you a little bit, my friend. Let's dig into, you've written a book, probably a couple, one that I have in front of me.
Yes.
You can see we were talking about before we got on air. It's all crumpled up. You said I was built that way specifically because of to allow coaches or people to travel with it and use it as a reference guide, and we do. And
It's the highest compliment. It's the highest compliment, honestly.
You're welcome. but more importantly for me, it was the ability, and I want to talk about your past as well, because it's accumulated. It's an accumulation of not just tennis, but your background, your history, what you've done is in this book in a nice little short form that is so easy for me to leverage as a coach with not only myself but with my athletes, right? And the one thing I mentioned before we got on the call was discipline. Right.
Yeah.
And I leverage that I leverage that for me. It's for me. So I'll take, that back, because I try not to push me on my kids or my students, but it's the one thing that keeps coming up weekly. Right. And not in a bad way, not like, oh, you need to be this, just in conversation with them. And it's wonderful. And I think there's somewhere in the book, it says it's the foundation.
Yes.
Right. And so I'd love to learn more about, let's talk about a little bit of the background and then how you got to the book, if that makes sense to you.
Sure. So my background,
it's not just tennis.
Correct. It's not just sport.
Yeah.
It's life. So my background began as a competitor, and it wasn't a competitor necessarily in a traditional sport, although I did play lots of sports, but it was a competitor in the fact that I was the youngest child. I was the youngest in my immediate family. I was the youngest in my neighborhood friend group. And until probably 8th or 9th grade, I was the youngest kid basically in the surrounding area.
Gotcha.
It wasn't until that age that more families moved into the area that had age contemporary kids that I could interact and play with.
Big gap? Small gap?
Big enough.
Okay.
Big enough, because from 9 to 11, it's only 2 years, but that's a
big gap. Yeah.
It's a huge gap. Yeah. So it was very similar to that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like once I hit 10, it was 3-4 years, which is massive.
Yeah.
Physically, intellectually, emotionally, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I had to, you'll hear me say this quite a bit probably throughout the course of our discussion, but I had to skill up quite fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you realize, in the social dynamic, when you're the youngest and the smallest, and nobody wants to pick you for their flag football team or their this or their that, because you apparently are unreliable, you're not very good, you're slow, you're smaller, right? So you don't have these external attributes that automatically would put you in the category of I'm picking you first.
Yeah.
You have to do something about that. And what I did was I got better. But my impetus wasn't just to get better, it was to be better than.
Yes.
So if I'm better than 50% of the people that are out here playing, you have no choice but to pick me.
Pick me.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you get picked, so that's one level, right? I had to level up. Then the next level up for me was, okay, you picked me, now I have to show you, I have to prove it. Right? That it's not just a fluke, and I have to be consistent with my level of performance. So that was the driving factor, and that's where it began. So everything that I did after that, when I moved into strength and conditioning and athletic performance, I didn't just want to be one of the guys. I didn't just want to be a good trainer. I didn't just want to be that. I wanted to be among the best in the world, not the US, not the state of New York, which is where I started, not Georgia when I moved there. No, I always wanted to be among the best in the world. So I always set my sights on those levels of aspirations, right?
Yep.
And then as time would have it, that environment basically facilitated the desire to be around others who had that same level of drive, that same level of ambition, but more importantly, that same level of skill set. So I found myself attracted to and in close proximity of world famous coaches, some coaches that are going to be in the Hall of Fame, coaches that coached at the Olympic level and had been there for, 10, 12 years.
Yeah. Three full cycles, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I sought out and spent time, interacted, tried to learn from as many of those type coaches as possible. After that exposure, or during that exposure, you start to see some commonalities. That's a term that Coach Heath uses, fundamental commonalities, right? I think it's a great expression. You start to identify those fundamental commonalities amongst these high performers in their domains. And those are the things that start to stick out. But more importantly, those are the things that start to act as homing beacons. So when you see individuals, regardless of where they are and what they're doing, when you see that homing beacon, you have the same drive, determination, discipline, consistency as all of these other
commonalities. Yeah.
Then you're attracted to them, right? And you want to be among like-minded individuals. So that was basically fast forwarded through strength and conditioning. Then I moved into track and field because I had created this training system, but I needed validation. Well, you can't get more validation than objective numbers. Correct. That don't rely on a human.
Yeah.
So electronic timing, if the clock says it, doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what it looks like. If the clock says it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I had to prove my system could elicit the things that I said it could consistently all across the board. The only place I could find to do that objectively was in track and field. So I started working with sprinters.
Yeah.
And then it turned into sprinters and jumpers. And then that turned into sprinters, jumpers, and throwers. And then that turned into throwers and hurdlers. Yeah. And before I knew it, I had a whole training group. And I'm in Trinidad with my training group because two of the athletes in the training group were from Trinidad natively and had competed for Trinidad in a previous Olympic Games. Gotcha. And then they were on their national teams. So I'm down there working with them because we have the infrastructure there that made it conducive to do a preseason training camp.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to who I didn't know at the time was the incumbent head coach for the Trinidad national team. Yeah. So that fast forwards, snowballs, I ended up, doing some work with the Trinidad national team ahead of the 2012 London Games. And it just went from there. So that's kind of, the same story just repeated in different domains. So in Olympic weightlifting, same deal. Started out with a girl who was just interested in training and getting in shape. I identified some physical characteristics in her. I was like, hey, if you're interested, I'd love to play around with this with you. Let's see how far we can go, right? And turned her from a person that didn't know what a clean and jerk was, like never saw it before in her life, to qualifying for New York State Championships and ended up finishing third.
Wow.
Right? The bar slipped, actually, as she pulled to clean the bar. The bar slipped as she was ducking under it. She couldn't get the bar in the right position as she was moving under the bar.
Yeah.
And tagged her chin, split it open, had to get 5 stitches. Wow. Came back, completed the lift to finish third.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they don't build them like that anymore.
But you're attracting them too.
I guess.
Yeah, you're attracting, right? Yeah.
So that was like I said, that's kind of my operating system, and I I rinse and repeat. I pick it up and transplant it in whatever area I think it presents me with a suitable challenge and the right infrastructure and resources to be able to excel.
That's awesome. And there's commonalities in your story. Obviously, you're not changing a lot. Sounds like you're just bringing new things to it, but not new. But you know what I mean? Like it doesn't say you're just bringing. It sounds like a system.
Yes.
Sounds
So
like a system.
clarity,
Yeah.
insight leads to innovation. Once you have identified what it is you're working with, so am I identifying a problem? Am I identifying a challenge? Am I identifying a solution that I'm trying to improve on? Whatever it is identify, I need to achieve a certain level of clarity. Then I can apply some insight to that. Maybe that insight comes from me. Maybe that insight comes from, the books that I've written, the people that I've spoken to, the people that I interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I apply that insight, and that combination typically leads to some form of innovation. And that's what I've done.
Yeah. Across the board.
That's what I aspire to continue to do. That, I mean, that's what wakes me up every day.
Continue the clarity to
continue that change.
Yeah.
My philosophy when I was coaching was when I was involved early on.
You're still coaching,
right? Now it seems like playing most of the time. Because I love what I do and I love the way that I do it. But when I started out doing a lot of the S&C, physical side, gym work, my aspiration was to be 10 years ahead and stay 10 years ahead. So if you go back and look at some of the stuff that I was writing about and talking about back in 1996, 1997, you'll see that stuff did not become mainstream until 2005.
10 years later.
6, yeah. So I didn't always hit the mark, but it was definitely...
You were onto something.
Considerably farther ahead of my time.
Yeah, you're onto something. I mean, you developed the EMS machine, right? The portable one. Your electric magnetics. EMS. Thank you.
Exactly.
Please.
The Axon,
I call it IMO Pro. Yeah, I was like EMS. Trying to go through. But yes, I mean that thing. I'll tell you a story one time about when I first got it. What happened to me, but not today.
Okay.
But unbelievable what we've done with that machine. I mean, mine is so used, it's like smoking. I mean, it's done.
So my concept for that was, I had some clarity around the technology. I had some experience with some of the devices that were already in the marketplace. I consulted with people that were far smarter than I was and am in the space of electrical engineering.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was able to innovate on that. And the product of the innovation produced the machine. Then I applied that same system to developing the protocols, to implementing the protocols, to scaling the protocols. And that's why I felt like we were able to get the results that we have been able to get. And this, even to this day, this is, I mean, we sold our first unit in 2013.
Yeah.
Now it is 2025. And to this day, I still have people that were, early adopters coming up to me, or messaging me and saying, just did this. Thank you so much. So grateful for this, So
yeah,
it's very cool.
Awesome. Are they still being manufactured? Do you still manufacture them?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nice. Wonderful.
So we still manufacture, we still sell them. AxonSportPerformance.com.
Yeah. IMO Pro.
The IMO Pro. Yes.
Yeah. Highly recommended. Highly. And so, you're an innovator. You're ahead of your time. I'd love to dig into the book, because one of the things that we're building a facility in Rockland. You're one of the advisors on the SCORE side, right, on the academy side, and I'd love to talk about the Champions Code. And so this is a book that, as I say, I use it as a reference weekly with the kids. But I'd like to get your thoughts on, why you wrote it, what it was for, who's intended for? I mean, obviously, but I'd like to get your insight around the book, because I think, it's going to be on every anywhere in that property. This book is going to sit, so parents can pick it up, kids can pick it up, right, and just start reading, right? So we'll have a bunch of copies sitting there once it's open. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, my friend.
Fantastic. So the reason that I wrote that book is because that's the information I wish I had access to.
Back when you were 10.
Back when I was 10, when I was 12, when I was 15, when I was 25.
Yeah.
Honestly, up until probably 3-4 years ago, I wish that somebody had delivered that information to me in a manner that was super easy to understand, free of judgment and ego. Just give me the black and white facts.
Yeah.
I did not require the hyperbole, because that, in that space, that left the opportunity for me to impose my own judgment.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to learn, the biggest impediment to education is judgment.
Oneself.
100%.
Yeah.
So you know where I'm going because you've read.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it doesn't matter whether or not you know anything about me, anything about my history. It doesn't matter, because it's completely detached from me. It's completely detached from any person other than yourself. And when you read the book, when you look at the attributes, it's a Q&A. Do I display, am I embodying these attributes on a consistent basis? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, great. Check, pat myself on the back, keep going, move on.
Keep going.
If the answer is no, then I need to skill up and level up.
Yeah. And I got to make sure that I do it, or change fields.
Correct.
Find something I'm going to match these 5 attributes.
Exactly. And that may be, a greater life decision that needs to occur at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's so I love the book. So thank you from my heart, and no judgment. I just love the book because it's so easy to use as a guide. You know what I mean? It's so easy. I love it. It's like Grant Cardone wrote the Millionaire's booklet. It was like this little small booklet. And again, it just fits in your pocket, so you can use it anywhere. You can pull it out and read it, right? And just keep it as little notes, right? So I love it. So thank you. You've now written the Champions Code. You are coaching on the world stage. You've won 2 Grand Slams. What's next?
More.
I love it.
Yeah, more, and not from a greedy perspective, because quite honestly, and most people that have done big things in their lives, they'll identify with this, because it's sad. It's sad when it sneaks up on you and you don't know it's going to happen. You've accomplished this thing that you dreamed about. Most coaches want to, like, what's your dream, Sean, in coaching?
I mean, I would love to be with the world number 1, but that's not. I don't think that's what drives me, John. Really, no. I think. I mean, to me, it's getting better every single day and becoming the best version of myself.
Right.
And if I can do that as I go through and keep learning and learning from folks like you and just get around that environment. So I don't know if that's a goal. It's kind of a life vision, right? To be in that environment and keep growing and become the best of what I can be.
Right. So a dream and your operating system and objectives are 2 different things. And what you just mentioned, coaching the world number 1. Okay. So that's a dream. You dream to coach the world number 1 one day. There's a specific way in which you want to do it, because if Sinner called you up right now and said, I want you to step in, yes, you could be in that position. Now you're coaching the world number 1, but that's not what you're thinking of. Mm-hmm. You're thinking of cultivating that greatness and riding and traveling the journey with them as they ascend to that position. Yeah. That's different, right? That's an aspirational goal. Okay. So for most coaches, if you ask them, well, I'd love to win a slam. I'd love to be a coach that has one of my players win a slam. Okay, cool. Well, when you get there, then what? Yeah. So you coach for 20 years and you finally make it happen. And then what? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And I can't control winning a slam,
Correct.
but I can control being the best version or working towards becoming the best version of myself every single day.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, yes, the world number one is a cool thing to say. And I don't even write it down on my goals. So I write my goals every day, twice a day. And it's never, it's always be around great players is part of it. Just be in that environment. Right. And that could be my kids. When you think about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And to your point, moving the journey. So, yes, exactly.
So after having done that, and this is all me explaining, what's next and why I said more.
Yeah.
So we win Wimbledon, fantastic, crazy experience. I had no preconceived anything, so it was all new and fantastic to me. Because again, I'm not indoctrinated, and
you came in a side window.
Right. I didn't grow up dreaming about this.
Yeah.
So I'm in this environment. It's fantastic. I'm so happy for Taylor because she earned that with her whole history of tennis, right?
Yeah.
So I'm super grateful. I'm really happy for her. For me, honestly, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's no big deal because I just said from the beginning, well, I knew you were capable of it. You just needed to level up.
Yeah.
And actually manifest it, right? It had to occur. Okay. Yeah. So what now? Well, back to work.
Next ball.
And shortly after that, we got back to work and she achieved her career high ranking of 45 or 49, 40, 45, 47, something like that.
Yeah.
And then we come to the end of the season and we start this year and we go to Australia and they're playing well, they're playing consistent, and we have an opportunity to get through the quarters, we get into the semis, and now we're eyeing the finals. We get to the finals and it's tough, right? But they're off to a great start. And then we win the finals. And everybody's like, wow, you won your second slam. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it amazing? Like, are you basing this
on what?
Yeah, based on what you think they should accomplish or what they're capable of?
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at what they're capable of, then they should win every slam. They should win every match that they play based on what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm looking at it, because my job is to improve, expand, and grow your capabilities.
Wow. Powerful, my friend.
So that's what's next.
Yeah.
What's next is I get back, put my head in the books. I get back, I'm studying film. I get back on my grind the same way I expect her to.
Yeah.
Figure out how to continue growing her.
That's awesome. That's awesome. She should read the Champions Code.
She should read it. Yeah.
And just on,
as she's running stairs.
Yeah. Discipline.
Yeah.
Get it done. Get it
exactly.
done. Right. So listen, my friend, I want to thank you so much. I know, and I hope you come back and we get a little bit more time to speak at some point. And I'm going to be down in Miami on the 27th to the 30th. So I think hopefully that she's accomplishing what she needs to accomplish, and we'll see you in the finals down in Miami, right? And so I'll see you there at some point. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all you do for our entire tiny organization, but growing. And I thank you so much, my friend, for your time here this morning.
I'm, always happy to be a part of what you guys are building up in Rockland, and it's just the beginning of, I think, a revolution in the model where, the player first, human first, success attributes and behaviors, life skills, they take the forefront, and everything else is nested nice and neatly underneath.
Yeah, it just happens.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Take care. Our friend Julian always says, fall in love with the process.
Yes.
Fall in love with the process. Everything else, take care.
It's amazing, but as my grandfather said once, a snake never loses its tail.
No.
Right? It always knows.
Yeah.
Like the tail never gets lost.
No, it knows where it is.
Follows the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right.
Granddad's wisdom.
Yeah.
I love it. Listen, all the best the rest of the week and
Thank you.
season, and we'll see you in March, my friend. Thank you so much.
Sounds great.
You're the best. Okay.
Yep.
Bye.